Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2018 Safer Internet Day panel discussion hosted by the Northern Virginia District PTA. Thank you for joining us, and we're excited to have all of you here for this engaging conversation about how to keep our children safe on the Internet. Today's event or panel discussion is being sponsored by Smart Talk, which is a program of Symantec, the National PTA, and LifeLock. The major contributor and grantee or grantor for funding to sponsor this evening's event, including the food that you enjoyed in the cafeteria, is Symantec. Also, the event is being live streamed. You can visit the novadistrictpta.org website to find a link to be able to view today's event via live stream over the internet. And it's also being recorded and will be able to be played back after tonight's event. So please, we encourage you to share with teachers and others in your community who you believe could benefit from tonight's event. That particular activity or this live streaming is being sponsored by Nova Systemic. It's my distinct pleasure at this time to introduce to you the District Director for the Northern Virginia District PTA, Debbie Kilpatrick.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out here tonight. It's really great to see the auditorium full, and we had an overwhelming response to our registration, so we're hoping that everyone can fit into the auditorium. Tonight, I would like to thank all of our event sponsors that Charles has just mentioned. And I would also like to recognize our school board members that are joining us tonight. We have Elion Moon, who's member at large. We have Megan McLaughlin, who is Braddock District. And we have our student member, Narika Vadakanda. And I believe we will be joined by Ryan McElveen as well. I think he's on his way. So thank you all for being out here tonight. Putting on such a large event as this, it takes a lot of helping hands, and I really want to thank my board members for being out here tonight and helping. You would have seen some of them in the welcoming you as you came in the door or in the cafeteria. Our our Secretary Treasurer is Denise Bolton. Our communications chair, who helps me get out all those great messages that come out to you, is Monique Roberts at the back. And we also have with us tonight Martha Coleman, who is our events coordinator, and I think there she is. Thank you. And I'd like to make sure everyone knows that it takes a lot of volunteers. So I have Barb in the back. I have many helping hands to put this on. So we really appreciate everybody coming together. I'd like to also recognize our Virginia PTA President-elect, Donna Colombo, who's joining us tonight. And so, again, thank you all for being here tonight. I hope you enjoy the program. And please let your neighbors and your other school communities know that internet safety is a topic that's important to each and every student and each and every family within Fairfax County, Arlington, Alexandria, and Falls Church City. Those are the school PTAs that we represent. 225 very engaged school PTAs. So thank you all for being here tonight. I am now going to throw it back to Charles for him to continue with the program. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Debbie. As Debbie mentioned, good evening once again. My name is Charles Britt, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as the moderator for tonight's panel discussion. I'm with Northern Virginia Community College as a STEM education coordinator. We have a program that we started about 5 years ago where we build and develop after-school and co-curricular programs to encourage students to pursue careers in STEM education. And over this past year, we have partnered significantly with the Northern Virginia District PTA to connect with you, parents, schools, and communities to develop and inform you about pathways to STEM careers. Of course, one of those being cybersecurity that you'll hear a lot more about tonight. I will start off by saying, first of all, did you know, as of June 2017, 51% of the world's population is using the internet. That's more than 3.8 billion people. The internet is an amazing invention that has undoubtedly changed the world in ways that we can hardly ever put our minds around or grasp what the internet has done. However, every new technology leads to new challenges, and the internet is no exception. From cyberbullying, sexting, internet identity theft, and malicious viruses, the internet also poses a serious threat to your children's safety, personal information, and innocence. That's why today, more than 100 countries around the world are celebrating Safer Internet Day. This year's slogan is Create, Connect, and Share Respect. A better internet starts with you. The goal of today's panel discussion is to help raise awareness of safe and responsible use of the internet and other online services both in the classroom and at home. Education about online safety should surely begin at home, but it is by no means the sole responsibility of just parents and guardians. Schools and teachers should also be able to provide their students with all the necessary tools to face the online world in an empowered and reasonable manner. It goes without saying that industry and other stakeholders, such as government and policymakers, also have a key role to play. This evening, you'll have an opportunity to hear from experts from each of these stakeholder groups who will provide valuable insight into cyber threats and trusted tools and resources to ensure a better digital experience for users of all ages. If you're on social media, who's not on social media, follow and use the hashtag SID2018 or hashtag Safer Internet Day to engage in the global conversation that we're having today. It's my distinct pleasure at this time to introduce our first panelist, who is Tammy Sisk from Fairfax County Public Schools. She's an instructions technology specialist supporting the SBITS for the district and project owner for digital citizenship. Previously an SBITS for Halley Elementary School and an elementary school teacher, Tammy leverages her experiences in the classroom to inform her passion, which is supporting people by helping them learn to use technology for meaningful, relevant, self-directed learning, innovation, and civic engagement. Tammy is a Google certified educator, Microsoft certified educator, and a Microsoft Innovative Educator, as well as member of the International Society for Technology and Education. At this time, if you could give her a warm welcome, Tammy is going to kick off our panel discussion this evening.
Okay, thank you so much, Debbie, for this opportunity, and thank you for everyone that came out tonight. I think we're all here for a common purpose, and that is our children. And I really am very grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you tonight. So I'd like to start by telling you some student stories, because I think that's really what connects with people. And I think one of the things we can all agree with is that one of the things the internet is doing is connecting people, but also disconnecting people in many ways. So I'm going to tell you a story about some of our Fairfax County students. On the far left over there, you'll see Audrey and Rodney. And full disclosure, I do not know these two students personally, but they are students at West Springfield High School, and some of you might already even know them. And the reason that I'm bringing them to your attention is because they showed up in my Twitter feed one night, and it was a story that was engaging enough that made me want to click on it and learn about them. So these two students happened to see an advertisement that the Three Musketeers company had been, advertising, trying to get people to throw shine, which in their language is to throw kindness, be kind to people, demonstrate kindness. And for whatever reason, it captured their attention. And Rodney came to school the next day and left a candy bar with a very nice Post-it note that said, "You're beautiful," to somebody. And it was anonymous. The person that he gave it to didn't know who it was, but they were touched by it, and his friend Audrey learned that it was him. And then she went on to leave some candy bars and kind messages like, "You can do it," or "Good luck on your test today," just nice, positive messages. Well, it started catching on in the school. And Rodney, the reason he did it, and the reason he began to try to encourage other people to do it, is because he was tired of seeing negativity on social media. He wanted to change the culture of his school. So he started a Twitter page with the hashtag #ThrowShine, West Springfield High School, throw shine, and soon the entire student body was engaged in positive messaging around the school. Well, the Three Musketeers Company came to learn about the efforts in this building and shipped 2,500 candy bars to the school to support their efforts. And not only that, they made a documentary about it, and you can watch it if you like. Just Google West Springfield High School Throw Shine. It's a wonderful story, and I also believe they're going to paint a mural on this school to continue the culture of positive messaging. Now, I tell you that not because of, internet safety, but I tell you that because it shows the power of connecting people through technology. It took off once it hit Twitter. It connected him to the Three Musketeers Company, who could then support his efforts. So it's a very positive message about wanting to change culture. And it was self-directed completely by one of our students. So wonderful story, and kudos to both of those wonderful kids. The next story is about one of our alumni. His name is Giovanni. And Giovanni is a 2013 graduate from Mount Vernon High School. I don't know if anyone here knows Giovanni, but I'm going to tell you a quick story and then tie it all together for you. So I was out in Los Angeles this weekend. True story. I got out of my plane, got an Uber, and when I got into the Uber, the Uber driver had the most beautiful, long, curly hair. And once I got settled, I said, wow, your hair is beautiful. It reminds me of a student that I know back where I'm from in Virginia, and he has a YouTube channel devoted completely to his hair. And he teaches people how to take care of his hair, different hairstyles he can do with his hair. And, the guy basically stopped and turned around and he said, do you mean Gio's wave? And I was like, what? Are you kidding? And so Giovanni wanted to, he wants to be a model. So he set up a YouTube channel. He knew that his hair was his unique attribute, and he civically engaged with the YouTube community by providing a service. He's teaching people about how to care for hair that's like his. So he had a target audience, he knew what he wanted to do, and he used it also for self-promotion. My Uber driver in LA knew who this kid was. It floored me. So, I took a little snag it here. This one particular video had over 2 million views. So you could go to his channel, and you might be unnerved by the story of an Uber driver knowing who your child is. But I think what I want you to ask yourselves is, who's influencing these kids? I've told you 2 great stories of kids that are making a difference either for themselves or their community, but they had influencers along the way. It may have been their parents, it may have been classmates, their coaches, trusted adults in their lives, people in their place of worship, who knows? It may be a combination of all of those things, but every interaction we have with our kids matters. And that's really the underlying message here. And for the students that are here tonight, what I want you to take away from this is that I'm not encouraging you to go start your own YouTube channel, and I'm not encouraging you to set up a Twitter account. You need to decide that with your mom and dad. But what I am telling you is to look beyond the surface value. Gio, and if you don't think critically about his site, you might look at it as simply entertainment, but he had a goal, and he wanted to help people who were like him and also help himself. And he's doing it in a way that's pretty commendable. He's kind of funny and entertaining along the way, but he's doing it for a reason, and he's giving back to the community of people that are like him. Same thing with these other 2 young students. They wanted to make a difference, and they set up a Twitter account specifically to improve the culture of their building. So I hope you'll take those positive messages and really think about when you enter the world of social media, what are you going to do with it? And who are your influencers? Who are those trusted people that you can talk with so that you can change the world or your school or your own home, your own family environment for the better? The last lady I do know personally, her name is Tirtha, She's a student at Oakton High School, and we were developing some courses for parents. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those later, but we have some online courses to support you and your kids, and we knew we needed student voice. So I reached out to some of our schools and said, I need some kids. I need some kids who care about this topic to come in and help us with our courses. And so Tirtha was on the student leadership team and was recommended by her teachers. And she gave her time to us, completely volunteer. There was no pay for it. She came in twice, as a matter of fact, because we messed up the first take and she had to come back a second time. But she volunteered her time to a cause that she believed in. And I wanted to highlight her as well, because that's what being connected in a community and being civically engaged is all about. And I hope that all of our students that are here tonight will think about these examples whenever you begin to network online. Okay, now, parents. I really love this quote, and I brought it here tonight to share with you. Thinking precedes doing, and our job is to support thinking. So there's no tool in the world that will protect children from every danger that's out there. But what we can do is support their thinking and teach them how to think critically. And that's sometimes really obvious, and there's also a lot of missed opportunities along the way. So I'd like to tell you another story about a coworker of mine. Her name is Lisa. She has 2 young children, one in school and one not yet school-aged. And they were using an app where the kids, and some of you kids might even know it, they go and they bake cupcakes. And I can't even remember the name of it, but she's in the app, and Lisa's sitting with her and watching what she's doing. And you can pick phrases. You can't actually type what you want to say, but you can use pre-selected phrases to talk to other people that are also playing the game. So it's relatively safe. It's all pre-screened things that they can say to one another. Well, a car drives up into the scene, and another player says, hey, you want to come with me to the bakery? And her daughter chooses the word sure, and gets in the car and goes. And Lisa works in technology where I do. Well, if you're just focused on the app and going to the bakery and baking cupcakes, you probably wouldn't notice sort of a subtle message that might be sending. And so I tell you that because one of the very first things you can do to support your child is to actively mediate what they look at. And this involves television, videos they watch, games that they play, the people that they might network with on social media. If you aren't there to help them interpret what they're seeing and what they're hearing and what they're experiencing, they're missed opportunities to influence and to support them in becoming a critical thinker and user of the internet. So one of the very first strategies that I recommend is active engagement and mediation of what your children are doing online. This is especially important when they're young because they want you involved in everything they're doing. They want to show you. They want you to play with them. They want you to experience it with them. And those are the places where you can lay the foundation. As they get older, you might, sit down and talk with them about the privacy settings you use in your Facebook or in the social media that you use. They see us sharing their photos all the time and stories about how proud we are of them, but we never really sit and talk to them about who we're sharing it with or why, or even ask them if it's okay. And so we have a lot of missed opportunities to model what it means to be a thinker and to think about who you're sharing things with and why you're sharing it with them. So don't miss those opportunities. The second way that I think parents can really support their kids is to set limits. So many of you are probably thinking about getting your kids a cell phone. Many of your children probably already have cell phones. But I want to ask you this. Are you prepared when you buy that cell phone to really put in the time and energy it's going to take to teach them all of these things that they're going to need to know to interpret that world? And if you don't have that time, I ask you to really think about if you're ready for them to have a cell phone. And then, is your child ready? And don't be pressured by other parents and whether their kids are having phones. Every kid is different. They're going to mature into things at different ages, and your world is different, and what you can handle taking responsibility over is different than other families. So do what's right for your family. I know Barbara is going to talk to you an awful lot about some great resources that you can use to have those discussions, and Symantec and the Smart Talk, that's another tool you're going to have at your disposal tonight to start to have some of those conversations with your kids about limits too. But that's a really important step in getting your child ready to be online. The third thing would be to monitor regularly. So you've had the talk, you've got some limits set, you've worked with them since they were young to really help them interpret the world, but your job isn't done yet. It's going to take constant monitoring, and this is true of teachers, this is true of parents, it's true of aunts and uncles. We have to look out for our young people, and it does take an awful lot of time and energy to do all of that. Some of the ways you can do that would be to physically actually check their social media. Let them know you're going to be checking their social media. Check browsing histories together so that you can talk it through. You don't want to have misinterpretations. Sometimes kids have really good reasons for looking up certain things, right? So always talk that through with them, and make sure that you check on what they're downloading and purchasing as well. And kids, don't hide things from your mom and dad. They're there to make sure that you are thriving in the world. So trust your parents to guide you in the right ways. And then lastly, again, always review those privacy settings. They're really important. And lastly, would be to use a technical tool. There's a lot of tools that will filter content, limit time, restrict the sites that they can go to, and those have a place. However, it has to be balanced with teaching them to think, because if we protect without teaching them to think, and then they're out of our care at a friend's house or beyond, they really need to know how to do that for themselves too. So you want to balance the two of those. So I also want to, before I pass it off, I want to highlight just a few resources that we have, because we care about your kids too. And if you go to the Fairfax County Public website, in the search box, type the words digital citizenship. It's going to connect you to a page that looks sort of like the three squares you see here. If you click on digital citizenship families, it'll bring you to a page that looks like this. In that upper left corner is that online course that I was talking to you about. It's designed so that you can do it together. It's targeted for grades 7 and up. I encourage you as a parent to take a look at it because much of it would be appropriate for younger students as well, but we want you to have the opportunity to take a look at it first. And it's chunked, so you can do a short little bit here and another little bit there. You don't have to sit and do the entire thing. And it's interactive, it's engaging, and it has student voice also. So, please take advantage of that. It's free, no obligation to use it, but we really encourage you to use it. And then we have tip sheets and privacy setting tips and all kinds of different things for you. And kids, we have some student interactives for you. So on that same exact page, if you click on Digital Citizenship Students, we have some great portals where you can go in, and it's a gamified way to also learn some really good practices for digital citizenship. So thank you very much. And again, I'm really grateful that you're here tonight.
Tammy, thank you so much. Great introduction. So again, I'm Kevin McPeak from Symantec. I'd like to thank Debbie Kilpatrick for all the hard work she did organizing this event and everyone else here. But I especially want to thank the parents and the students that are here, taking time out of your busy schedules for for learning more about such an important topic. So here I have my agenda, and basically going to go over some of the things I think are important when we consider students and how they're operating in cyberspace. But everything is to build up towards a better understanding of what Symantec LifeLock has built, which is called the Smart Talk. And the website for this is www.thesmarttalk.org. So, and I'll go into what that entails, but it's basically a really helpful tool for parents and teachers to navigate with students and children, how to be effective and safe in cyberspace. So my goal, and really I would say my passion, is to encourage everybody to get educated, to be motivated, and to feel inspired to sort of have good cyber hygiene, good cyber best practices, and to make sure that we're all safe when we're online. I'm sure all of us from time to time are sort of, flipping channels at home, we might come across like the Nature Channel, and you always see that in the wild, when there's a situation with predators, a lot of times it's the young ones that are targeted for hostile attacks. And unfortunately, in as far as living here in Northern Virginia, very safe communities here, school system, excellent school system, very safe. But the internet itself can be a very dangerous place for young people. And it's a sort of situation where things can spin out very quickly, very suddenly. And it's important that teachers and parents and guardians are paying attention for the young people in their care and custody, that they're making sure that they're being safe. So a little bit about my goal and aspiration is that we really sort of double down on this effort. So let's talk about what is digital safety. So one component of it is privacy and security. So these are things like having strong passwords, ones that aren't easily guessed, using things like two-factor authentication. Also teaching young people that you don't use the same password for everything, because if you do, and if there's some sort of keystroke logging or something that's being transferred in plain text, somebody could pick that up, that child's username and password, and then use that to access some of the other things that they're getting into, which can open up a whole bunch of bad things that can occur. The other idea is to make sure that you're avoiding scams. Tammy mentioned about a game where somebody could maybe encourage a child to get in a vehicle and go somewhere as part of the game, but is that creating a modality of thinking to sort of prep that child to do that sort of thing in real life? So teaching them to be situationally aware for that is very important. And also, protecting, what in the government, what's called PII, personally identifiable information, things like birthdays, social security numbers, PHI, personal health information of the child or the child's family members, keeping all these things safe and not sharing these things in an online environment. The other important thing with privacy and security is going through each app that the child is using and making sure that the security settings are good. And I really like that, Tammy suggested do that together with the child. Sit there, look at what they're logging into, look at the browsing history. You're not basically, the child then has that expectation, the teacher or the guardian or mom and dad, they're going in there and looking at these things, and they're doing it with me. So they're not sneaking around on me, but they are making sure that they're doing this, and it helps them to pay attention as well. So next thing, I'm sorry. There's the animation. So digital footprint and reputation. So this is thing about, teaching young people to reflect on what things you photograph, what things you're posting online, what you're saying, because if you put something inappropriate out there, it's important to realize even if you later delete it, there's a good chance that it's going to come back and harm you. And what I always suggest to people is, if you have a phone that has the camera, which pretty much all of them do, if you snap any picture, even if you don't upload it to a site, that phone is still on a network. So if the phone itself is compromised, has some sort of malware on the phone itself or the tablet, any picture could conceivably leave your protective domain of the device and be out in the wild, so to speak. Relationships and communication. So, Tammy talked about having positive communities online, gave great examples of students that were doing that. So I think just, teaching young people to navigate, and as young people, they're learning how to navigate social experiences and group dynamics in the school and in their after-school activities and in their communities where they live, but also online. So it's the same sort of ideas to avoid negativity and to promote positive community engagement. An interesting thing I observed it was actually on a podcast, a technology podcast, was talking about how artificial intelligence and all the breakthroughs, especially out in Silicon Valley, that they're doing around these types of artificial intelligence technologies, the artificial intelligence systems are learning to mimic human behavior and thoughts. And because there's so much negative content out there, what they're seeing is a lot of the artificial intelligence is shockingly reflective of society, because a lot of it is coming out in a very negative way. Information literacy. So the whole idea is being able to learn, just like if you're doing research in a library, but also online, like making sure that the young person knows how to ask the right questions, how to frame things to get the right type of answers, and then to understand just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. So being able to identify, find, and evaluate and use online information, and understand that the quality of information and the credibility of the sites that are hosting it are important. And also giving credit where it's due. If students are using online research for school papers or other activities, making sure that they're sourcing the sites correctly. All of that's part of information literacy online. Internet safety, of course, perhaps this is the most important part, at least of my presentation here, but the whole idea of being able to distinguish between inappropriate contact and also, what are positive connections. And also, especially at a young age, if children are online, explaining that somebody, like a lot of times with the gaming systems, especially during inclement weather, like what we're having, cold weather, children will go online and they will be playing games simultaneously with some of their peers in their classes or what have you. But if somebody spoofs a child or kind of joins their gaming community, it could actually be an adult who's feigning, a child status. So it's unfortunate. We talked about protecting innocence, but I think at a point where the teacher, parent, and guardian needs to sort of explain that conceptually so the child knows. Just because somebody says, hey, I'm, 11 years old or what have you, doesn't necessarily mean that they are. Cyberbullying, I'm going to go into depth on that a little bit more, but again, being able to understand both the negative and positive actions that somebody can take online, and sort of the downstream secondary and tertiary effects that can have on their classmates or other children, and even in other parts of the country or even the world. So I won't read to you these various statistics on cyberbullying, but I think if you do look through you can see how disheartening this is conceptually. Things that I think students wouldn't necessarily say to somebody to their face or in a group dynamic. They might be more emboldened to do the sort of thing, when they're online and display these sort of negative behaviors. So being able to talk to your child about how their actions can cause emotional pain for others, and then also addressing your child that, as a teacher, parent, or guardian, that you are a safe person for that child to come to if they themselves are a victim of cyberbullying, and helping them to develop mechanisms to stand up for those that are being picked on in cyberspace. So I have here a video that I'd like to show, and I might need a little help from the back. Is there a way to launch this, or here we go. Thank you.
Player with a minute left cracked the shot, and unfortunately Kui wasn't able to stop it. It was in the back of the net, and the next thing we knew, the ref was blowing the final whistle.
It's horrible, I guess, because as a goalie, that little one mistake, is a goal, and a goal in soccer is huge. This guy said, "Oh, I'm gonna make a great photo album. We have a bunch of pictures of you making great saves." The photos went up, and I was just shocked. It was just, horrible. After those photos were posted, there was a lot of tension. And I didn't want to go to school. I felt like taking time off. I didn't want that attention. I didn't want that negativity.
we decided we had to do something. And eventually we found this great picture of Kui making a save. And the 3 or 4 of us at about 7 p.m. made it our profile picture. I came back about an hour later, and my newsfeed had exploded. It started with the soccer team making it our profile pictures, and the girls' soccer team made it their profile pictures, but then the whole school got involved. Over 100 people had either liked it, commented on it, tagged themselves in it, made it their profile pictures, and it was like my entire newsfeed was covered in Daniel Kui stories. He came to school the next day like he was 10 feet tall.
Amazing keeper skills.
Once he had that confidence, he was just going for it, throwing himself out there like a rag doll. And the next season, one game, they were just hammering shot after shot after shot. And Kui makes the best save of his life. He was parallel to the ground, he did a Superman dive, and the ref blew the whistle and we won the game.
And I punted the ball up in the sky, and then I started running. It's like, wow, best moment of my life. I'd changed from the freshman kid to Daniel Kui, the beast goalkeeper.
The whole school had stood up for someone who needed it. He was a normal kid just like us. We have our highs and our lows, and that's when we realized that we were all Daniel Kui.
So yeah, if you could disengage the video piece of it, thank you. Oh. So pretty moving story. It showed both examples of cyberbullying, which is what happened initially, and then a good community experience where the students were proactive in creating a positive online environment for their. He was in the beginning of the video, you might have missed it, but he was a freshman playing goalie on the varsity team. So in the interest of time, I won't read all these to you, but the whole idea of signs that your child might be having some issues online. If they're up late at night online, if they're being secretive, if they're turning off their monitor or not letting you look at what they're doing, if they're being withdrawn around the family, if you notice some signs of depression, also if you find some inappropriate content on their systems, these are all things that as a parent or guardian you should get involved in some conversations with the young person, sort of see what's going on. And also have some hypothetical conversations. Run through some scenarios with the child to say, what would be appropriate to share. What sort of things at your age would be okay or not okay to put online. So these are very useful things to consider. But the key takeaway here is conversation is key. The whole idea to discuss things about your privacy online. Integrating different apps and different websites, that several of us today will show you. These are online resources to help you to, go over and review and teach young people what is appropriate behavior online. And a lot of times it comes down to what's appropriate in person should also be appropriate online and vice versa. And showing them that there really shouldn't be a big gulf between who you are one-on-one and who you are online. And also to emphasize, come to the adult for help. If the child is overwhelmed in their situation, they need to feel very comfortable going to their teachers, parents, and guardians to get that effective support. So again, the real emphasis on the LifeLock program called the Smart Talk. It's www.thesmarttalk.org. And it covers, basically when you log into it, you sit there with your child and you go over things around safety, privacy, and you click through it, and it gives you a chance to make selections. So you have a dialogue, and it kind of walks you through it, coaches you as a parent with that young person to sort of show them things around safety, privacy, what is appropriate screen time, what are the rules that are agreed on, what are rules specific to social media about respecting others. What types of apps can you download if the child has their own tablet or their own computer, their own phone? What apps can be downloaded? what things do you pay for, what things are free, the use of texting, what is appropriate, what things the parents should or should be able to review, and also sending and receiving, or making and receiving phone calls. These are all things that are navigated. And what happens when you're done is it prints, it allows you, it does a cumulative effect. At the very end, you actually have it, you can print it out, put it in the refrigerator or on the child's door, an agreement, and it can be signed by the child and the parent. So here are some additional resources. Again, the website, thesmarttalk.org, and also Common Sense Media, which we're going to hear more about, but that's something that Semantics very much supportive of. It's a great organization for improving cybersecurity online. Also, the Stop Think Connect campaign. This is something promoted at the government level. It's a public-private partnership. And also this link, the NSA.gov, under their resources pages, they have a Crypto Kids section here that has some really useful tools to help children develop an interest in cybersecurity and best practices online. So I'd like to thank you.
So great information from both. Thank you both, Tammy and Kevin. I needed to mention at the beginning of the program that each of you should have received an index card that you can write questions on, and what we're going to do is collect those at the end after our last panelists, and we'll have them answer. Someone will vet the questions just in case there's duplicates, but be prepared to turn those in. Someone will walk around and collect those, and we'll have a Q&A time at the end. So we're glad to have these experts here. So if you've got questions, this is your opportunity to present those this evening. So we're going to change up the conversation just a little bit. Now that we've heard about the threats and the importance of communicating with your children, our next two speakers are going to speak primarily about the resources and tools that are available to you online and other places for you to have those important conversations, and things that you may be able to share with teachers and others who could use in the classroom or in your community. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Barbara Huth. Barbara is an education program manager for Common Sense Education in the D.C. metro area. She partners with school districts across D.C., Maryland, and Virginia to help educators and parents build the foundational digital citizenship skills for kids to utilize technology safely, responsibly, and meaningfully. Prior to joining Common Sense, Barbara was a national board certified science teacher. She holds a bachelor's degree in integrated health studies from Kent State University and a master's degree in comprehensive science education from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. At this time, help me welcome Barbara Huth.
Hi, thank you, Charles, and thank you everyone in the audience. I'm super excited to share some of Common Sense's resources with you this evening. Tonight, I am going to share some tips, also some of the resources we have on our website to keep kids safe, happy, and healthy in the digital age. A little bit of background about Common Sense if you're not familiar with us. We are a nonprofit that's committed to making kids the nation's top priority. We provide resources to help families make informed choices about the media and technology in their lives, and we are all about sanity, not censorship. So before I get started in sharing some tips and resources, I want everyone to just take a minute and think about this question. So how do we use media in balance, find quality content, set healthy expectations, and raise media-savvy consumers and creators? That's a pretty heavy question, right? And good news, if you're worried about doing it right, you're probably not doing it wrong. There's no magic bullet. Tech and media move too fast for simple solutions. But there are some things that you can do to set yourself up for success, some overall guiding principles that can take some of the worry and headache out of parenting around tech use. And Tammy mentioned some of these earlier, but first, co-use or co-watch with your kids. It's fun, you're getting into what they like, but you can also talk about the content that's presented, and you can make real connections with them. Know your own rules and be consistent. As a teacher, it was so important to be consistent with my rules and make sure I knew them. And have a follow-through. Make sure you follow up with a chat after, a rule's broken, or if a rule is not broken. Rehearse your expectations with little kids and make it fun. Encourage more creation. Have your kids create online and not just consume. There's tons of apps out there that foster creativity, and you can find those on our website as well. And also, on top of all that, make sure that we're being good role models. You can't expect kids to do things that we're not showing. Also, kids today aren't so different than we were. The struggle is real for our parents too. They want a chance for independence, opportunity to try new identities, and also acceptance from their peers. It's just that the context and rules of engagement have changed with more powerful tools that they can carry around in their pocket 24 hours a day. There are many things we can do to help our kids navigate their digital lives. For example, we can help them manage privacy settings, and as adults, we should do this as well to protect our digital footprints. This is just an example of an Instagram privacy setting, and Instagram is normally set to public by default. And it's super easy to change it to private. You can just click on the button, and then all of your posts are private, and you control who's your friend and also who sees your posts. So it's worth to check each downloaded app with your kids as a family. Now, settings can help block strangers from friending and commenting, but they can't prevent all negative online behavior, as Kevin mentioned earlier. And the CDC, or Center for Disease Control, estimates that cyberbullying affects about 15.5% of high school students. In comparison, about 20% of students have reported that they're bullied in person, just to give you a comparison. And some best approaches to bullying are make sure that your kid knows how to report abuse in an app. If an app is not obvious about how to report an abuse, then it's probably not an app you should be on. Encourage upstanding. Sometimes peers sticking up for peers is often the best defense. So make your child an upstander. Take screenshots. Encourage them to take screenshots if they are being cyberbullied, and tell a trusted adult about it. And if your kid is the bully, do what you would do in any situation with inappropriate behavior and limit access to the technology as the kid regains trust with you. One of the best solutions to bullying is teaching digital citizenship. Common Sense Education has a free digital citizenship curriculum that schools are using in this area and around the country. There are 8 facets to digital citizenship with our curriculum, and some of them include internet safety, privacy and security, and cyberbullying and digital drama. You're already teaching your kids to be good humans, but there's an additional layer to that lesson when kids are behind a keyboard. It can be easier for kids to say mean things or say things they wouldn't normally say when they're behind that keyboard. Beyond social media, there are other concerns in the world of media. There's violent content, there's inappropriate images, and there's also targeted ads. So how do we combat that content we're concerned about? Well, with little kids, we choose what they watch and what they interact with. But as they get older, they start making choices for themselves. And the goal is to help them make good choices on their own. So it's okay to check, but it's best to let them know that you will check, and not that you're checking to catch them, but to help them make good decisions. And always follow up with that chat. That's the most important part, because this opens the door for conversations if there's something that they're concerned about in the future. They feel like they can come to you and talk to you about it. We can also help. We know that technology moves so quickly and it's so hard to keep up. As a high school teacher, my students usually would tell me what's new and happening, but Common Sense does this work for you. We have reviews of books, movies, TV, apps, games that can help you. It tells you the age appropriateness of the media, and it also gives you like a quick overview of what the app or game is about. Some of them even include really short videos, about 1 minute or 2 minutes, that give you an overview so you can see what that app's all about. And then there's also a content grid that shows, things that you might be concerned about or excited about. Like, does it have a lot of good educational value? And then other things like, is there violence or inappropriate language? And then if you click on any of the tabs, it'll give you more detailed information for that specific app. And one of my favorite parts with our reviews is there's a section about what families can talk about. Sometimes it's hard to even understand what the app is about, so it gives you a little guide of some questions that you can ask with your kids about that particular app or game. So a big question that I always get is, what about screen time? What about the amount of time that kids are using media? What if it seems like they can't stop? And since we haven't truly defined a technology addiction yet, it's about feeling addicted, not necessarily being addicted. And you can see here that 50% of teenagers feel addicted to technology. And I'm sure as adults, we often feel this as well. So the best starting point for a balanced approach to technology use is to model the behavior you want to see. And like Tammy said, monitoring media use by using limits, right, not lectures, is also really important. Like having a device-free dinner or a device-free zone, like at bedtime we don't have phones. Also, we want to teach our kids to make positive choices, so it's important to step back at times and mediate rather than constantly checking to build that trust. We also have family media agreements to make sure that everyone's on the same page. You can download these on our site, and they increase privileges but also responsibilities as they get older. And we have a ton of resources to get your device-free zone or dinner started. We have a device-free dinner toolkit. It even comes with invites so you can send them to your friends, activities for the family, and so much more. You may have seen some of our commercials with Will Ferrell as well, showing his device-free dinner. And since this is all a process and tech changes so quickly, you can visit our website to get more information. It's full of free content, reviews, parent advice, lesson plans, and lists that we've curated so you can find exactly what you need. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate that. Okay, thank you. That's good. So next up, and our last but not least, our panelists from the Department of Homeland Security. I'm still stuck on this device-free dinner. I'm like, I think all my friends would abandon me if I told them we couldn't have phones at the dinner table when we're hanging out. But for the kids, yeah, I'm going to support it. So our last speaker, our panelist, is Latasha McCord, who's with, as I mentioned, the Department of Homeland Security. She's a branch program coordinator within their Cybersecurity Education and Awareness branch, which is responsible for the department's formal education programs. In her role, Latasha is responsible for K-12 programs, such as the Cybersecurity Education and Training Assistance Program, as well as partnerships with the National Security Agency on the National Centers of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity Defense. Also, the National Science Foundation on the Cyber Corps Scholarship for Service. She's a subject matter expert in designing instruction using available and appropriate technology in all its forms to help create a more 21st century classroom environment. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Latasha. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Well, good evening. Again, I'm Latasha McCord. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Debbie, and to the PTA for having us. But let's get started. So I represent DHS, so I need for everyone to turn in their devices at the end of the program. That's the best way to keep our children safe. But the core missions for DHS, we have 5 missions, but the most important for tonight is to safeguard and secure cyberspace. So a little bit about my branch, which is CE&A, the Cybersecurity Education and Awareness branch. We lead the National Cybersecurity Public Awareness, Education, Training, and Workforce Development. This is the efforts to support the protection against and response to cyber threats and hazards to Homeland's economic and national security. So what is cybersecurity? There's a lot of information behind me about what is cybersecurity. I wish I could pass a microphone around to see what your thoughts are. But cybersecurity is basically unauthorized or criminal use of electronic data, theft, attacks on your information, attacks on networks, security threats, viruses, you all know. But why is it important to us? Why is cybersecurity important? So I wrote down 4 things, and I actually thought about this week. It's sharing sensitive information can endanger your child. Posting questionable content can lead to identity theft or social engineering. Broadcasting your location online can endanger your child and your entire family. And what I mean by that is when you're posting pictures and you add a location in Instagram or you add a hashtag, those things can be traced. The last thing, remember there is no, I'll say that again, there is no delete button on the internet. So please be mindful of what you post. So who is responsible for cybersecurity? I love this image. Everyone is responsible for protecting themselves, each other, our businesses, and of course the nation. So a properly trained cybersecurity workforce is very essential for private industry and government employers to protect our information, our networks, and our cyber environment. So a safer, more secure online environment. So DHS is here to help keep your kids safe online and to help prevent identity theft, securing your mobile devices, stop phishing attacks, and just staying safe on social media. We also have a Stop, Think, and Connect campaign that Kevin mentioned. This is a one-stop place for cybersecurity best practices, and it includes tips on how to keep you and your family safe online. And those resources were available in the cafeteria. I put them out on a table, so please feel free to stop by and collect a poster or grab a poster that has the free information where you can download different types of resources. So I was, on my drive here, I was thinking about where does cybersecurity begin? Where does keeping our children safe begin? And it actually starts sometimes if you don't have that talk with your students at home, right here in the classroom. And I have the pleasure of wearing 3 hats or playing 3 roles. I am a government employee, I am a former educator, and I'm also a mommy to a 7-year-old who we are recruiting to be in cybersecurity today. So he will be taking my role in about 20 years, but he's excited. So we have tons of resources available, but like I mentioned, it starts right here in the classroom. And we have this program this grant called Cybersecurity Education and Training Assistance Program, and that's our CTAP. It's a grant that equips teachers with learning tools. 8,000 plus teachers use this curricula to impact millions of students, and it's amazing. So if you are an educator, I advise you to please visit the website. You can download the curricula. It's free. It has lesson plans. It's great. So please check it out if you can. Some other things that you may want to consider. We also have the National Centers of Academic Excellence. It's a CAE, and we actually have a local CAE here, which is NOVA, that was mentioned earlier. And then we also have the the SFS, which is Scholarship for Service. So it's a Cyber Corp Scholarship for Service, which is a scholarship that is available for your students if they would like to join the world of cybersecurity. And these are ways to get involved. There's tons of resources out there that DHS offers, but the one that I really love is the Scholarship for Service, because your child can join the workforce and receive a scholarship and give back. And the way they can give back is giving back their time with an internship in cybersecurity or any discipline within cybersecurity, as well as giving a year back to the government. So we need your children to help us create a safer online. So that's some things to think about. So if you have any questions about that, I do have a lot of resources. So when I say scholarships, that means free money to school. So I wish I had that opportunity to not pay back student loans, or my parents pay back student loans. So I'm here to help you. So as I mentioned earlier, the Centers of Academic Excellence, these are some of it's over 200 designated CAEs in 46 states, DC and Puerto Rico, and this is where they are on the map. And then, as I mentioned also, is the local CAE, and NOVA is one, Northern Virginia Community College. And then this is more information about your Scholarship for Service. Any questions? And I guess we will have those.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank
Latasha, very much. Appreciate that. So, come to the very important part of the program and right on time. If you have not turned in your index cards, I believe they have been collected. And there are questions that we're going to pose to the panelists for them to answer. So for me, there was lots of information and key takeaways for parents and students to kind of ponder and think about and take some actions with your students moving forward. The first one, communication is essential. Very important that, again, you start the dialogue with your students in person, face-to-face, and talk to them about their use of the internet and what they're doing. Second, connecting with your child about their use of the internet and, as I mentioned, other media as well. What types of movies are they watching? What types of games are they downloading? So that you can fully understand how your child is using the internet in these particular instances as they talked about. And then last but not least, one that I consider to be very important is that a shared responsibility, as Latasha mentioned, for everyone, not just teachers, but parents, community members. When you learn about issues and challenges that are impacting kids, or if you hear about something that's trending online, share that information with others. Because oftentimes people don't know, and maybe out of ignorance or just not fully understanding, they may pass along something or send information or pass a rumor that's not true. So I think we all have a responsibility to ensure that we keep our children safe, and one of the best ways to do that is by sharing the information. So at this point, I'm going to move to the questions, and the first one sounds like it's coming from a parent. I'm just joking. What should you do if you know your kids are not being honest with you? What should you do if you know your kids are not being honest with you, I presume, about their internet usage or activities? Who would like to answer that one first? Any parents? No, just, yes.
I'm assuming that they're not being honest about something they are doing online. And so I guess first, I think one of the best things we can do for our students is to model. And if you didn't have some of these conversations with your child before they went online or got a phone and now they're not telling the truth, the first thing I would do is sit down with my child and say, hey, I need to talk to you about a mistake that I made. We bought you a phone, but we never really talked about the expectations. And now we're here, and I have some important things I want to talk to you about. And I'm sorry we didn't sit down and have those conversations, but I want to talk with you about it now. And then I would address the issue. So that approach models two things: that making mistakes is a part of being human, and you're inviting them to have a conversation with you And you're also setting groundwork for a future relationship around talking together about what happens online.
Anyone want to comment from this side?
Something that works well in my home, we play a trust activity. So we talk about what it means to trust each other and to be honest. So having those conversations can lead to being honest when it comes to posting things and what your student actually posts. So we tried a trusting and honesty game. So that's how we approach things in my household as a parent.
Awesome. Anyone else? We have another question. So, panelists, we live in Northern Virginia. We have a great education system, and they're teaching our children well. Some parents are concerned that my child actually knows how to go and erase the browser history. They're smart. So I don't go back and figure out what they're doing on the internet. Is it possible for a parent or a guardian to use their internet router to monitor the traffic that's happening in their home? This will be a good one for you, Mike. Kevin?
So here's the thing. If you want to get into a cat and mouse game with the child, I think in the long run you'll lose, because they will acknowledge that you've sort of figured something out, but then they'll find some other workaround. They'll either do their behavior, they'll connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot at a friend's house or out at a coffee shop or what have you. They'll find some workarounds. So I think it really does come back to having that open dialogue, and almost, this is almost at a higher level of discussion of parenting in general. It's not even online, it's just in general. If a young person is circumventing family rules and parental control, and to some degree it's a natural process, right? Because young people want to test the boundaries of authority, and I don't have the deep expertise in child development or child psychology, but just human nature is there, and reflecting on my own experiences. But I think it's just having that open and engaging relationship with your child to really, help them to understand that you're in their corner. You're trying to help them to grow and mature and to make the right choices. And if they're messing up, you have to have, I think, both carrots and sticks in place. So there's reward for good behavior. There's also punishment for, if they're going out of bounds. I know Beth mentioned, like, during if your child is involved in bullying, actually taking the technologies away from them until that child regains your trust. So I think it's a never-ending engagement with the child on all levels, what they're doing online as well as what they're doing in other realms.
Barbara, I think this next question is sort of a follow-up to what Kevin's talking about. I think you may be able to answer this based on the work that you all do at Common Sense Education. Have some parents in the audience that are saying, you know what, I'm trying to keep ahead of my child. But the more I learn, they're catching up with me. The parent has found a way to block YouTube. They found a way to block certain websites. But by God, I can't figure out how to block these online games or other particular sites that I don't want my child visiting. Are there ways or resources for a parent to be able to determine how to change settings on devices or online so that they can control what their children can view online?
There's definitely ways, as Kevin was mentioning before, to monitor and to limit what your child can access, but eventually your child is going to be leaving your house, right, and on their own. And the most important thing that we can do as adults is teach them the proper use of a cell phone or a computer, because they're going to need that skill for their entire lives. And I think that if we're creating this environment where we're acting like, kids are constantly being watched, and that they're going to go and be sneaky and do things behind our back and find the ways that Kevin was saying earlier as well, to do those things. Teaching high school, my kids were extremely smart, and they would find ways around, media filters. But they would tell me about it because they trusted me when they did. So it's about building that trust to be able to have those conversations. And if a rule in your family is that your search history is available, then that needs to be an expectation and you need to follow through. So if the search history isn't there, that's something that needs to be followed up with a conversation. Why isn't this search history here? Not necessarily trying to find another bigger tool to monitor their use, but that is your expectation that the search history is there. So that's, in order to use the device, the search history is available.
Charles, I just want to throw out one scenario, and I'm hoping that the parents here don't find themselves in this space, but in the event you have an out-of-control situation where you're doing all the correct things as a parent, you're having the engagement, you're really trying to make a difference, and the child's simply not responsive, and they're constantly doing the bad things online, and it's bordering into illegality or dangerous acts or what have you, or bullying, all these sorts of things. As a final destination, you could go with this would simply be, I think, full confiscation and a prohibition against it, with the exception, you could have something set up in a family public area, like in the kitchen, so they can get online, do their homework, and do some, basic research or some things, but it would actually be supervised. So you might be in the room doing some other things, but you can turn and look and see what's on their monitor and what they're doing. So that's a place you really don't want to end up, but I think that is one option. It's probably the best option amongst bad options if it did finally come to that. So maybe if the child realizes that's where things are going, that in and of itself might rein in their behavior.
And I'd also just like to add that when you have these initial conversations, be predictable. Tell them what will happen. And then it's not a surprise or a fight. I mean, you've given them all the information and you're giving them the opportunity to make choices. And when they make the choices that aren't the right ones, they know what's going to happen. So be very predictable, be very consistent, and that will really help to keep things in an even keel.
Very great. And I think, again, Kevin brought up a point about the data and things that are on your computer or your particular devices are not just on your devices. This data and information is being stored somewhere else through whatever provider is providing you access to the internet. It was interesting. I was visiting a school that shall remain nameless and talking to some students about cybersecurity, which, as you've seen from my bio, is my background. And one of the students came up to me and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm really good with the internet. Do you know about this? Do you know about that?" I'm like, I wonder how he knew. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, well, I don't do that anymore." And I said, "What happened?" He's like, Verizon cut off our internet access and said we could no longer have internet access in our home because of the activities that this middle school student was doing in their home." Yes. So kids and students use as an example that they need to know your work and what you're doing could impact others around you in your community, in your home, and others are looking at what you're doing. It's just not mommy and daddy going through the history. Someone else is tracking your activities as well, so you have to be careful. That's an extreme situation, but clearly it does happen. Another question. Oftentimes, again, through our work with NOVA, we offer cyber camps, and I often ask students at the beginning of the camp, well, what do you think is the number one threat? What is the number one cybersecurity threat? Students all say hacking. Everyone says hacking. 90% of the time, students will say hacking is the big cybersecurity threat. When in actuality, unbeknownst to many, social engineering is oftentimes the number one cybersecurity threat to organizations, schools, and communities. Can someone explain how do parents talk to their kids about social engineering?
Well, you can start by, and I failed to mention this and I apologize, but the NSA, which is the National Security Agency, they host a Gen Cybersecurity Camp. And it's co-funded by the National Science Foundation. It's free for students K through 12. And some dates will be available in March. But if you go to www.gen-cyber.com, your students can participate in this cybersecurity camp, where they will be educated on the top cybersecurity threats.
Awesome. Anyone else? I think, again, if these slide decks are shared after the event, I think there were tons of resources I'm fairly certain on all these sites that you can get additional information about social engineering. Next question. This one, the individual said a simple yes or no answer will suffice. In your opinion, anyone who wants to answer, do you think that the problems and risks associated with requiring children to use the internet as an integral part of their education, for instance, for reading textbooks and doing homework, has reached a point that exceeds the benefits the technology provides?
I can answer.
Yeah. Yes or no? Yes.
I would say no.
I agree with Tammy. I think it's what they're doing with that device that matters. The quality of their work and if they're creating things is really the important thing to focus on. So instead of looking at the amount of time, you need to be looking at what are they doing, why are they doing it, and have them talk to you a little bit about it. As we know, as we get in to the workforce, a lot of times we're using these same devices, and we want to make sure our kids are ready when they graduate high school for those types of jobs.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question. Someone willing to share with the parents and others in the audience what resources are available for gaming addiction for young students and teens? What resources maybe are available for gaming addiction?
Well, I was waiting for Barbara because Common Sense Media has just such a wonderful array of resources in general. So in terms of gaming addiction, I think you can teach students how to monitor their physical signals that their body is giving them. So for example, you know, when you're on a computer for a long time, whether it's gaming or socializing on social media or just watching videos, there probably isn't a person in the room here with a cell phone who doesn't have a neck ache from time to time, right? We all have that. Our head is about the weight of a bowling ball, and when we're looking down, we're putting that much weight on our necks, and that's why it hurts. But students may not have that innate ability to actually connect pain to what activity caused the pain. So one of the things we can do to help students identify are they becoming addicted is, what is your body telling you? If you're using something to the point where it's causing your body physical pain, what you need to do is notice that and then change. And if you don't change, your symptoms will become worse. And not just physical symptoms, but there's all kinds of things. There's eye strain. You can develop arthritis in your joints and knuckles for holding positions or repetitive motions. There's all kinds of things that are in relation to that. And that lack of personal relationship. You know, you have to stay tethered to your real life, not your phone, not your game, because people are what matters. People are what make life unique and special. Games make it enjoyable, but so do people. And just reminding kids stay tethered to life, not phones, is a great mantra to repeat over and over again. People matter.
Awesome. Thank you, Tammy. Next question. Do any of you actually have recommendations for a really good password vault program? Where can I store all those passwords where someone's not going to go in and steal all my passwords?
Pretty sure the one I use is called PassSafe. It's a blowfish encrypted. So it's actually it saves it on your local device, but it's a symmetric key encryption.
Is that PassSafe? Yeah, safe. Okay.
I apologize if I have the name wrong. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
I use one called 1Password, the number 1 and the word password. So you have a single master password, but then all of your passwords, it will generate encrypted passwords for you. So when you go to a website, you go to the websites through the tool, and it will automatically log you in. So it just creates ridiculously long passwords that you would never remember. I do not keep any financial information in there whatsoever or health information. Those passwords are committed to my memory. But for tools and different things that I use 1Password.
So from a DHS standpoint, do not write down your passwords. Someone can get your information by you leaving it on a desk, or you writing it down in a notebook, or to students, you writing your password down in your agendas. Someone can take your information. So please be aware.
Can I just comment on that? For home use, especially if you have several children and they're just getting involved in these things, encouraging them to teaching them good cyber hygiene practices, to have a different password for everything. So even if they're little kid games, you might think it's okay if they have a simple password like, Redskins123 or something, and they're using that for everything, but then you're not really teaching them, you're not modeling the right kind of behavior. So one of the things you could do is have the child have a complex password, have them write it down with the parent, put it in an envelope, seal it, put a piece of tape on it, have the child sign it, and have mom or dad keep it in a safe or something. So that way, if they get locked out of their game, it's easy enough. You just, do a password reset and repeat the process. But that kind of gets the child in the mindset of, hey, I'm going to take this really seriously.
A follow-up question to that, a parent is asking, what's the best age to start talking to your child about good digital citizenship and use of the internet?
Well, I can speak for myself. I started at 5, and my son is now 7, about to turn 8. But at that age, he started using devices. His father is in the military, and so they communicate using FaceTime, and so we provided him with his own device to do so. And therefore, we needed to speak with him regarding how to be safe online. So 5, I think, is a great start. And they start kindergarten at 5, so.
Yes, I completely agree with Latasha, and our curriculum that's free on our website starts at kindergarten, and it goes all the way up to 12th grade, and some of that content does build on how to create passwords and safe passwords with that in the elementary grades.
And I'll add in that the American Academy of Pediatrics talks about media use and the amount of time that is appropriate at different ages. And for children under 2, they say no screen media, with the exception of perhaps FaceTiming with a grandparent or a family member or something like that, that screen time is not beneficial at all for age 2 and under. And, I mentioned the Fairfax County course that we have on our website for families. We have all of those guidelines and a nice activity to help you kind of process what good screen time would be and at what ages. So I encourage you to go there and check it out. It'll help you out.
Awesome. Another question from a parent. As a parent, it says, you give your child a device, such as a cell phone, or particularly in this case, a smartphone. You give them access to the world. When in actuality, they may just need to be able to make a telephone call. Their question is, or what are your thoughts about giving a child an access to a smartphone versus a cell phone, bearing in mind that if they have just a cell phone, it's much easier for them to control their access to the internet on a laptop or a computer in the home?
I really like the question. I like where the parent's going, but I don't think there's a cookie cutter answer. I think it depends on your child, your expectations, what they're asking for, the whole social milieu of your family and their playmates, the cultural framework. I mean, there's so many things that go into that. But certainly having a flip phone, one, it's going to be less expensive. If something happens to it, it's easier to replace it. It's also easier to, if the child's not handling that correctly, there's less onerous cost to taking that off of them. So, but I think what I would caution is if the child's getting older and all their peer group is, but again, to Tammy's point, you don't want to be necessarily let the other parents, what they're doing, influence you. But I think it's just hitting that balance, and it is really case by case.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the maturity level of your child and how responsible they are, but also what can you support? Because, we've spent a lot of time talking tonight about how important it is to consume and use media with your kids. And if that's not something that's in a realm of possibility for your schedule, you need to make choices that are going to work in your family. So just exactly what he just said, it's not a cookie cutter answer. It's something you have to weigh all the factors in your family, weigh what your student wants to do, how responsible are they mature enough, are they willing to abide by the rules that you have, and do you have the time to really teach them? I can't remember where I heard this, but it's a anecdote that kind of stuck with me. We spend a lot of time teaching kids to drive a car, and we would never ever dream of giving them the keys to the car until we taught them how to drive. And so I encourage you to take that analogy with you to cell phone use. Cell phones are portable, they go everywhere. A laptop is harder to carry around and conceal what you're doing. And so when you give them a phone, have you prepared them for that phone, like you would prepare them to drive a car?
Awesome. So we're going to do a lightning round on this last question. Just fill in or finish the sentence. When do limits, censorship, and monitoring just turn into plain old micromanaging? It happens when they're struggling here.
I'd like to comment. There's other adults, parents that I have a lot of respect for them and how they're parenting. So I think a lot of times it's good to kind of get your thoughts synchronized with people that you sort of respect and believe in and what they're doing, and if so they become a sounding board. So like if you're a colleague at work or what have you, and you're like, I'm doing this with my daughter or something like that. If they're like, well, that's a bit over the top, then perhaps dial it back. But flip side, they might feel you're being too permissive. So I think having, because for a lot of us it's uncharted territory, because when we grew up we didn't have this issue, right? So that's my thoughts.
Anyone else want to quickly comment? When does it become micromanaging?
Yes. I don't know. That's kind of a hard question. I guess if you're wondering if you're micromanaging, you probably are to some degree, right? Is that a bad thing? Maybe not. I don't know. But I think you have to think back to what it was like when you were a teenager, and what were the age-appropriate behaviors you engaged in as a teenager, and then where are your limits? Where do you want to maybe let them be human? They're learning, and if you're calling out absolutely everything that they're doing that maybe borders on inappropriate, you're probably micromanaging. Some of that is identity formation. It's trying out different things and seeing how people react. But if it comes to safety or harming someone else or revealing, too much information that would put them at danger, you can never micromanage enough. I mean, those are really important things. Safety is number one.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I think we have gotten to the end of our panel discussion. So if we could give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you. Great questions from the audience. Thank you for your engagement and hanging around with us. I wanted to make an announcement that there are still materials from, I think, each of the groups that are represented here have tables in the cafeteria. If you could swing by there. I know from my exhibiting experience, I don't want to take anything home with me. So if you could go by and relieve me of carrying any items out, there are materials available in the cafeteria for you to pick up. According to the slide deck, it says that you're to look for a survey about this event and future digital safety programs. And if you have any questions, you can email the Nova District PTA, and their email address is included here. Last question. Some of you may want to actually hear this one. Come on. I know you're walking out on me, but you're fortunate tonight. So you made the decision to drag your kids out, and we appreciate that. I know it's a school night, but someone asked, is school going to be closed tomorrow? 2-hour delay. Sorry, students, not going to be closed.
It's a great
2-hour
time to take
delay.
that course with your kids if we have a delay.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure moderating
Thank
tonight's
you.
program, and have a good evening. Good to know. My job. You asked that. Kevin, see. So what's the question? I'm sorry to get to that. Malware. Yes, malware.
Malware and ban So there's the proper way your computer, your tablet, or your phone should operate. It's got an operating system. Malware is when somebody designs that ends up getting installed, and it does something malicious. So malware, it's not like software is good. Malware is malicious. It's short for malicious software.